All right, here is some, but not all, some of the most important stuff from Act 1. Scene 1 opens with these witches. We get some weather here. Weather's a motif. We get contradictions. Those contradictions are a motif. We got darkness. Darkness is a motif. We got some more contradictions down here. And we also have this repetition that goes along with the contradictions. Plus, holy cow, some more weather. In scene 2, we meet that captain who tells Duncan about the battle. Some important stuff includes the fact that Macbeth unseams him from the knave to the chops. This seaming, this unseamed, should connect to the clothing motif. Oh, we get some more weather here. We get some contradictions here because eagles are not afraid of sparrows. Lions are not afraid of rabbits. It also counts as an animal motif. Plenty of animals in this play. This is all about blood. Blood is another motif. We'll talk a lot about Roth in class, but I'll save the reasons for later. Let's see, over here Duncan is using the witches' words, lost and won. So we got the contradictions. Here we have the witches discussing the fact that the first witch is going to torment a sailor, and she's going to make him lost at sea in a storm. This mirrors something that happened to King James on his honeymoon, and he's sitting in the audience thinking, holy cow, that happened to me. I think it might have been a witch. When Macbeth and Banquo show up, we get this, more witch language and its contradictions. The witches are, in many ways, inhuman, perhaps even not woman-like. That might connect to Lady Macbeth later. Banquo notices that Macbeth seems to fear the fair things. Don't forget about these words that sound close in almost in rhyme. We also have Banquo talking about the seeds of time growing or not growing, and he wants to know what's going to happen to himself, to which the witches answer, lesser and greater, not so happy but happier, so we got some more contradictions. Macbeth down here wants to know why, from where they get this strange intelligence, but they vanish. And Banquo wonders about whether they've actually seen what they thought they've seen, or whether they've eaten the insane root that has taken their reason prisoner. Here, Roth shows up, and he gives Macbeth the news that he has become Thane of Cawdor, to which Banquo says, holy cow, can the devil speak true? He's associating the witches with the devil. Macbeth, by contrast, says, why do you dress me in borrowed robes? These robes are borrowed. They do not belong to me, and I might have to give them back. Let's see, over here, Banquo calls the witches instruments of darkness, another motif. Macbeth over here weighs all the ways in which the news can't be ill, can't be good. His heart palpitates, his fears, his horrible imaginings. He's thinking about murder, but the murder is simply fantasy at this point. Banquo notices that Macbeth is rapt, he's lost in thought. He also, like Macbeth did, refers to these new honors as garments, which are clothing. Macbeth is hoping that after they think about it, he and Banquo can speak freely to each other, meaning we can tell the truth to each other about how we feel. Let's see here, Duncan's wondering about whether the Thane of Cawdor has been killed, and when Malcolm says that the Thane of Cawdor confessed and was sorry for what he had done, Duncan responds with, yeah, I'm not so sure, because it's really hard to tell who to trust. You know, you look at somebody's face, and you're not really sure if they're honest or not. Dun dun dun, Macbeth walks in. What do you think about that? Okay, down here, Duncan says, I owe you a lot. Macbeth says, you don't owe me anything, because the loyalty and the service that I owe you pay for itself. Duncan says, well, I've begun to plant you, and I will labor to make you full of growing. Another plant motif or nature motif. Macbeth takes this as a promise that more good is to come to him. Banquo picks up on this same motif because he starts making references to harvesting too. Over here, Duncan names his son to be the next king, and Macbeth is not happy about that. In fact, he's quite angry. In fact, he starts thinking about the stars, which is where the heavens are. He wants them to hide their fires so more darkness can come and hide all of his desires that he describes as black and deep. Lady Macbeth shows up in scene 5 reading a letter from Macbeth, which describes the letter from the witches. And she's afraid that even though her husband has ambition, he doesn't have the illness that ambition requires to get what you want. She seems to think that one needs to have a certain sickness to acquire the best things. And so she intends to influence him. And anything that's getting in the way from him getting the crown, she's going to chastise it away. So if it's his kindness or his fears or his weaknesses, she's going to try to remove those things by pouring her spirits in his ear. Here, Lady Macbeth calls on spirits and asks them to unsex her. She wants to be filled from the crown, which would be the top of your head, but also from the thing that you wear if you are royalty, from the crown to the toe, full of cruelty. What kind of cruelty? The most dire cruelty. She wants her blood to be thick. She wants to feel no more remorse. She wants to exchange the milk in her breasts for gall, which is a gross, disgusting, caustic fluid. And she also, like Macbeth, wants that night to come. She wants more darkness. For her, she doesn't want her knife to see the wound that it makes. Now, as far as I know, knives can't see. But this piggybacks on another motif that has to do with sight. Here, Macbeth shows up, and he says Duncan's coming. She says, when's he leaving? He says, tomorrow, and she says, oh, never. I know she says some more stuff here, but the never is so important. So important that apparently Macbeth gets a strange look on her face, and that concerns her because she wants him to look differently. She wants him to look like innocent and flower-like instead of what's really under it. She wants him to be that serpent, but not to show that he is a serpent. And she and he start talking in terms like this to refer to the impending murder of Duncan. They'll use the word business and deed, but they'll rarely, if ever, say murder. Don't forget, in fact, that Macbeth did say murder before he came home. In scene 6, Duncan arrives at Macbeth's castle. He seems to think it's a beautiful place. And in scene 7, Macbeth thinks to himself, geez, if I'm going to do this, I should do it quickly, which means fast, but also means soon. And to trammel up something means to catch it in a trap. A trammel is a special kind of bird trap. And in his case, he wants to trammel up consequences. He wants to catch consequences so he doesn't have to suffer consequences. And he wants to end it all here. Even though he has all those thoughts, he starts worrying about Duncan and about whether poisoning him either literally or figuratively, might be dangerous to himself. Here he describes his ambition. Lady Macbeth too spoke about his ambition, and he calls his ambition vaulting, because he fears it might overleap and leap too far and then fall when it lands. And so when his wife shows up, he says, we are not going to go forward with this business, okay? We're not going to do it for lots of reasons, such as these reasons. And she gets really upset about that. She accuses the hope that he had for being drunk, that he had dressed himself, this comes back to the clothing motif, in drunken hope. In fact, in hope that hasn't been sleeping well, okay? She says that he's afraid to act, to fulfill his desires in a valorous way. And he seems to understand her insults to be about his manhood. She says here, when you broke this enterprise to me, that means when you came up with the idea for this assassination, then you were a man. In fact, this word beast is almost a compliment. And he would be more the man, in fact, more manly, if he did go through with it. For example, she says promises are very important, even if they are terrible things. And if she promised to do something terrible, the most terrible thing you can imagine, she would follow through with it. She says, if you screw your courage to the sticking place, some people feel like this is a crossbow metaphor, because a crossbow has a sticking place where the bow, when it's strung, is held tight. And if he were to screw his courage to the sticking place, then he would not risk failure. But the problem is he's not courageous enough. She comes up with this plan, says they can do anything, and instead of saying yes or no, he says this. This means yes. It means she is so tough that if she had a kid, it would only be a boy. This part, though, is pretty creepy. It seems very much like a demand that she bear him a male heir. And here he says, I am settled, and I bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat, which basically means I'm in. I am committed. And then he echoes some things about the face and the heart that she had said. She had said, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent. And here he echoes the idea that you have to hide what's truly going on inside. And that is Act 1. What do you think about that?